Okay, so welcome everyone to our third Storytellers Happy Hour with Tihi and myself, Lisa Kastner. Today we are honored to have two new guests. So Curtis Smith has published over 100 stories and essays, and his work has been cited by or included in the American Best Stories, short stories, the Best American Mystery Stories, the Best American Spiritual Writing, the Best Microfiction, the Best Small Fiction, and the W.W. Norton Anthology New Micro. He has worked with independent presses to publish novels, story collections, essay collections, and a book of creative nonfiction. The Magpie's Return is his 13th book, and it was named the Best of July 2020 by Kirkus Review. Sarah Z. Sleeper is an ex-journalist with an MFA in creative writing. Dai Jin is her first novel. Her short story, A Few Innocuous Lines, won an award from Writer's Digest. Her nonfiction essay on Getting Vivian was published in the Shanghai Literary Review. Her poetry was published in A Year in Ink, San Diego Poetry Annual and Painters and Poets, and exhibited at the Bellarmine Museum. She was an editor at the New Rivers Press and editor-in-chief of the literary journal Mason's Road. In the past, she had a 20-year career as a business writer and a technology reporter, and won 3 journalism awards and a fellowship at the National Press Foundation. And Tihi is an author and an activist. His debut book, Dark Corners, was named Best Indie Book of 2019 by Kirkus, and he currently works at Demand Progress, leading campaigns to protect privacy rights in the digital age. And I'm Lisa Diane Kastner. I am the founder and executive editor of Running Wild Press. I've done a whole crap ton of stuff. I don't really want to blather on about it. But if you are interested in hearing more from me or about the press or even about these guys, please feel free to join me every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Myself and Andrea Johnson, who is the executive editor for our new imprint, Rise, which publishes genre books written by people of color. Come join us, Facebook page, Running Wild Press. We would love to have you. So with that, I am going to hand this off to Tihi, who's going to explain the rules. Tihi.
Yes. So the rules, before we started recording, everybody was randomly assigned a story prompt, sort of out of the blue, that I drew from, where's my bag? Oh, it's behind my TV. That we drew prompts literally from just, the 30-some that I had written down. So we each got about a couple of minutes to figure out what kind of story we want to tell based on the prompts that we have. And now we're going to go through the order and we're going to do it. And, everybody get your booze ready if you're booze drinking. I have succumbed to the White Claw monster or god or goddess I now worship at the altar of White Claw. Because pandemic. So we're going to start in the order in which we originally drew, which means we are starting with Curtis, and Curtis's prompt is Lost in Translation.
Awesome.
All right, and I'm just ready to roll. All right, let's do it. It took me a moment to get my head out of the comfort zone of a movie I love so much. But I thought back to my college days. And when I went to college, I worked on the grounds crew. And I'd start every morning with like a bucket and a stick with a nail in it, going around campus picking up trash. And it was like really a wonderful time of life to have that. That was like my biggest care in the world, was picking up trash in the morning. And it was a great way to meet people too. And it was in Pennsylvania. I worked at a college called Kutztown, and it was a real Pennsylvania Dutch area. And that could be its own Lost in Translation, but that's not this story. And they kidded us college kids a lot, and they rode us, and it was all good fun. But one guy I worked with had a tracheotomy, and he would hold his thumb over his throat to talk. And once he found out that I was one of the few people, for some reason, I can understand him, because this was back when technology wasn't really good. And for some reason, I could understand him when a lot of other people couldn't. And after that, we were like best buddies. We would talk, and I think he was just so relieved to find someone maybe who wasn't lost in translation, that we really formed a bond, like an old guy and a young, long hair, Rolling Stones loving 79 kid. So I still remember him to this day. I can visualize him. Don't know what's become of him, but I'll never forget him.
I love that.
I'll stop there.
Oh,
I'm gonna have to use that for a story now. I haven't thought about him for years.
You are gonna have to use that for a story.
also, go ahead, Sarah.
I was going to say your empathetic powers as a writer, your ability to kind of get inside someone's head and understand someone, came through in your ability to understand what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. It was hard sometimes. This was like ancient technology.
Yeah.
But yeah, we clicked.
I'm really curious as to whether or not he's alive or not. So like maybe that would be like an interesting nonfiction essay. It's like use the pandemic to internet sleuth and see if you can find him.
Oh, that'd be cool.
If I do some quick math, chances are he's not alive.
Oh yeah.
That was a good. That was a while ago. So.
Speaking of lost in translation, I was trying to order tea. T-E-A-T.
Yeah.
And she just thought I said cheese. And so I'm like, no, iced tea. Cheese. I'm like, no, T-E-A, like tea and coffee and tea, like that. She never understood it. The whole time she thought I said cheese. So I didn't get the tea.
Yeah.
Do you have like a chartreuse tray now in your room?
It was just we just couldn't understand each other. I don't know why.
But like the iced in front of it should give you some sort of context clue.
And then when I spelled it, I said T-E-A. That's she got it in her head that I said cheese, and that was it. So
it's been a week. It's been a difficult week for us all.
True.
That was funny.
Definitely.
It's like that game where you whisper something and it goes around, and then by the time it gets to the end, that's a funny thing about Lost in Translation too.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on for our next storyteller. Sarah had chosen the prompt first job.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about my first job and my third job. Okay. I was a very industrious youngster, and I also had to pay my way through college. So I had a lot of jobs during college. But in high school, my very first job, because I was always a nerd and still am a nerd, and I was very, focused on learning to type really, really fast. Really, really fast, in the old typewriters. And so I did learn to type really fast. So my first job was teaching. I was the assistant to the typing teacher at my high school. So that's like Nerd Central Station, giving the teacher an apple to earn brownie points and all that. But the third job was the one where I really learned a lesson, which was I worked at Sunglass Hut. Remember Sunglass Hut?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was really good at matching the shapes of glasses to people's faces. I really had a knack for that. So I sold really well. I was a good salesperson. However, I had a very irresponsible habit of being late. So I would come to work late a lot. And finally, one day, the manager said, you know what? It doesn't matter how much you sell. Every day you're late, you make the other person, late for whatever they're doing. And so you're fired. Wow, right. And that was how I learned to stop being late. She put it in very clear terms. She just basically said, you're a selfish person for doing this to other people. And I was like, wow, she's absolutely right. So that's how I learned. And I'm very prompt
Oh,
now.
Yes, you are.
That doesn't work on family members, though. It's
It
not like you
does
can
too.
fire
You
your family.
just, Ruben, just leave. I told Vivian, if you don't come out of your room on time, first of all, a bomb is going to explode in your room. And
Mhm.
secondly, I'm just leaving and you're just not going. So she's, they can improve if you push them.
Wow.
Yeah. My mom used to be late picking me up from work for my teenage job by about like 2.5 hours.
Oh, my dad would do that.
And they would put me back on the clock. And they're like, your ride's not coming, so why don't you go back to work? You're like, ah.
That's really late.
Yeah.
That's
I've
super late.
I've struggled with late people my whole life.
Oh, you probably don't like them, right?
But I've related to all of them.
But did she ever say why? Like, I knew why my dad was. Did she ever tell you why?
No. Sometimes my mom would say she just forgot. She just forgot I existed. Like,
Well, I know.
Wow.
Curtis, do you have kids? Do you have kids,
oh,
Curtis?
do I?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
So you've been through this late stuff with your kids, probably.
I've been through it with myself. So your first stories,
Yeah.
Sarah,
Right.
your first story triggered a memory for me about the typing class that we used to take in high school.
Yeah.
I was the opposite of you. I passed typing on the last day of the semester. I had to go back like over lunch to retake a typing test that I had failed so many times before, because you had to type 25 words a minute to pass this class.
Right.
And I was like 20, 21. I think she took pity on me and passed me finally.
Well, A for effort, and I bet you're fast now.
I'm better than I was, but that's still the worst part of the process for me is the typing.
Yeah. Do you ever write longhand?
Oh, I always write longhand.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so crazy. I never understand how
Everything's
people can do that. Doesn't your hand get too tired?
no. I find that maybe it takes a while, and it's good for my brain, I think.
The really interesting thing I've tried is creative writing on my phone using like just my phone's note functions and swiping instead of typing.
Oh.
Interesting.
It's different.
Yeah, I always forget, like if I take a note on my phone about writing something, I always forget to go look at it again. So they're all in there and I never revisit them.
Interesting.
One day when I die, whoever inherits my cell phone will see the massive amount of notes I write myself on my phone.
Yeah.
It's slowly becoming its own
Thing.
catalog of Dothraki translations of things,
Wow.
because like I do that when I get bored, like
Yeah.
translate songs. Like it's
Cool.
probably over like 40 or 50 songs now. There's like a whole catalog of music that I've translated. Yeah. Sarah, the thing that I wanted to ask you about the sunglasses job, if you're good at pairing sunglasses to people's faces, do you still have that skill, and can you pair us with which type of sunglasses would be good for each of us?
Lisa's going to look good in anything because she has a particular shaped face that would look good in any kind of sunglasses, I believe.
I think I will be forever now.
What? Oh, no, I mean, you have the bone structure so that you can really do whatever you like. I have to always wear sort of squarish ones to counteract my narrow face. Ruben, you probably would look good in squarish ones too, I would think, actually.
Yeah.
And Curtis, I could see you in some aviators.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
These are all shopping tips. I am taking note.
So that's a fun way to do stories. I don't know if that's really a story or it's more like a memory, I guess, but
It counts.
It counts. It counts. There was a beginning and a middle and an end.
You had
Yep. All right, our third storyteller is Lisa, and she had the prompt I have been waiting this whole season for, which is first kiss. And I will say that this is actually the first prompt that I wrote when I wrote 30 prompts and had this idea of impromptu storytelling. Because at the beginning of the pandemic, one of my favorite things to do was to ask all of my friends what their first kiss was. And then just like the whole conversations that come out of it were always amazing. So no pressure, Lisa, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Okay, so there's the first kiss I tell everybody, and then there's the real first kiss. So I'll tell you the real first kiss, and then you might understand why I have a first kiss that I tell everybody. So, okay, so when I was a kid, I was really overweight, and I was the hyper nerd. I was in all the nerdy classes with all the other nerdy kids, and we had a junior high prom, which I'm sure everybody has a junior high prom. So in my junior high, a lot of the kids blossomed early, and I was basically the size and shape of a melon. And so the likelihood that I was going to get a date was like, so I did have a close group of friends, and we had one guy in our close group of friends who actually was already in high school, and I'd had a crush on him forever. So when my best friend's mom asked me who would I want to go to the prom with, I said, I would love to go with, I will not say his name so that he will be spared this embarrassment. So so she said, okay, well, why don't you just ask him? You're good friends. Why don't you just ask? So I sucked it up, and I got a whole lot of courage, and I called him, and he said yes, and I was floored. Now, I grew up in Camden, New Jersey, which at the time was one of the most dangerous cities in America, and we were pretty poor. So I got my prom dress at the flea mart. They had a stall where they would take these prom dresses that I'm sure were stolen off the back of a truck, and then they would be like adjusted to fit your body and all that. So I had this like shimmery pink foo-foo thing, probably because it was one of the only ones that actually fit me. And at that time, there was this big belief that if you have red hair, that means you need to wear pink or yellow. And I had this thing about pink and yellow, but more against yellow. So we ended up in the pink foo-foo shimmer dress. So go to the prom, and he was clearly uncomfortable, although, like I said, we were friends, and it was like, a handshake at the end of the night. So fast forward, I'm in high school, and I am a sophomore. And at this point, I'm no longer an apple or a melon. I actually have a shape. Like I've lost a lot of weight. And he was working at a video game gallery in the mall, in the Cherry Hill Mall. And myself and a dear friend of mine just happened to be wandering the mall one day, and he was working, and I had no idea. So we go in, and we're talking, and he's obviously like attracted to me now. And he's like, oh, I have to talk to you. So I'm like, okay. So he invites me in the back of the video game store. And I'm like, okay, because I have no idea. Like I'm a sophomore in high school. I've never been kissed, right? I mean, I never had a boyfriend, nothing, right? And he goes for it, right? And the whole time I'm thinking, am I really being French kissed right now? Like, is this what's happening? And is it supposed to be like this? Like, this is so interesting. Okay. And so, when we're done, he says, so so how was that? And I'm like, what? And he says, yeah, so how, what did you think? How was it? And I'm like, and in my head, I'm thinking it was really sloppy, and like, is there supposed to be that much fluid between mouths? Like, that was kind of gross. But
Nice.
I've had a crush on you since I was like 10. So I'm not going to say that. So I'm just like, yeah, oh no, that was great. You know, it was fine. So then he makes me swear that I will never tell my best friend, who was basically his, like, kind of considered to be sort of like his surrogate sister. They weren't related or anything, but they, you know, they like went to the same church and all this kind of stuff. So that was my real first kiss. The one that I tell everyone is the first kiss I had with my first boyfriend when I was 17 years old. And I met him at a rock club where I wasn't supposed to be because it was for only over 21-year-olds. And so I was 17 and he was 22, I think. And we were together for, I think, about a year. And about 9 months into it, he proposed to me. And this is a part that I don't tell anybody because it's really not nice. So he proposed to me. He worked at a car like repair place, and in I think in North Philly. And he was also a drummer, so he was a musician and he was a singer and he did.
They're always a drummer.
They're always a drummer. But my husband's a drummer. So I love drummers. Okay. So, and he was a bouncer because he was like 6'7", and he had long hair, like the bass player of Guns N' Roses, right? So that kind of long curly hair, and, you know, like built and all that, and a recovering drug addict. And I use recovering loosely because he wasn't really recovering. And so he proposed, and I literally laughed because I was so shocked. I know, isn't this awful? This is awful. These are things that you should never own up to. And I was like, are you kidding? And he's like, yeah, we could live in a row home in North Philly and, you know, have like all these kids and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know that that's really intended to be my future. And then I forget how I got out of the conversation, but somehow I did. So now you know what a raging jerk I am, both for my real first kiss.
His heart and his ego.
I know. He stayed with me for like 3 months later, 3 months after. And then we broke up because I found out, I forget how I found out, that he was cheating on me. And I was like, okay, well, done. And then he kept calling back, wanting to get back together. And I was just like, no.
Heartbreaker. You're a heartbreaker.
Well, now in retrospect, yeah, I guess so. So,
nothing wrong with being a heartbreaker, I think. This is the person who's proposed to more people that I've been in long-term relationships with.
You're a romantic, that's all.
So that's it. So those are my two big first kiss stories.
Wow. Those are good.
Those are good. Oh, I like that there was so much of a lead-in to the first kiss. Like, you know, you did the whole junior prom thing, and then years later.
Yeah, he was like, I should have done this then. And then it was like, and I'm like, ah!
Also, how typical teenager of like, how was that kiss? Like, we as adults now, like, never ask that question.
Ask that? I don't think people really ask that.
Never. Yeah. It was very, I couldn't believe it because I'm thinking like,
well, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 4.
Right. And like, I would know, right? Because like, and I was about to say, by the way, this is the first time I've ever been kissed. So, you know.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That brings up some memories.
Vivid memories, especially like the sloppiness and everything. I was like, I was
like, okay. I just kept thinking, is this what it's supposed to be like?
You should write the prompt. You should write the prompt "worst kiss."
Oh.
You need to write that. Put it in.
Yeah, it's getting added to the bag.
Yeah, worst kiss. Yeah.
Because everybody's got a story.
I had a worst kiss that I can tell you about really briefly.
Yeah.
I said this guy that was like the hottest guy in high school. Everybody liked him. He was very popular. And in college, he asked me out, and I was like, oh my God, the hot guy asked me out. Wow. We go out. He was wearing brown corduroys and a green shirt, and that is not good right out of the chute. That is not a good look. And so we go, and at the end of the night, he just like attacked my face, like on my doorstep. And it was just terrible. And it was so disillusioning because I had gone out with the hottest, the guy that all the girls, and it was just horrible. And then after that, I just avoided him all the time. This is terrible. And that was the first one.
I think because he was hot, no one ever corrected him on the
Right.
fact that he was a bad kisser.
Possibly. Possibly. Hot people get away with stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, Tihi, it's all you, man.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
the prompt?
I just had a thought of like, I should found the nonprofit that is like dedicated to the eradication of bad kissers. Like, we should just educate
I'll
them.
be on the board.
Yeah, exactly. And just have like a whole curriculum of teaching people how to like not kiss like
Yeah,
a fucking mind flayer Lovecraftian monster.
It's like a creep. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It would do a lot of good in this world.
It
Yeah,
would,
Um,
it would correct a lot of wrongs. I see this happening.
Redress a lot of past trauma. Okay. So my prompt is extreme weather. So there is a story that I usually tell about extreme weather, but I felt like it would be cheating if I told the story since everybody else had to make up something on the spot. So I didn't want to tell one that I've like rehearsed and performed a lot in and around Long Beach. So this is a brand new one.
Ooh.
But it is going to have the same opening. So when I was little, I grew up in Iowa. My family has a lot of indigenous heritage. And my mom told me a story when I was very, very young about thunderstorms. And she said that, like, when thunder and lightning were little boys, they were best friends. And they used to do everything together. Yeah. And they would always spend all their time together and everything. And there's the best childhood friendship. But as they grew older and they got married, they had kids, they had their own families, they couldn't see each other as much. So in the summers, when, there was more time to let loose and relax, their families would let them have a little bit more free time and they'd be able to go out and try to find each other. And so thunder would like come out into the sky and like scream like, lightning, are you there? And like lightning would scream back like, thunder, I'm here. And they're like, oh my God. And they're like so happy, but they're so loud. And so like humans on the ground experience this as a thunderstorm. And they're like the thunder and the lightning and it's all terrifying. But when you know the truth that it's two best friends who are reuniting after years, then thunderstorms become a celebration.
Mm-hmm.
So in my family, we celebrated thunderstorms. I saw like my first tornado when I was 5, like in person instead of seeking shelter. Like we went out into the street. I used to put on my swim trunks when the sirens would go off, and my mom would like scream to all of us as we're ready out of the house, like, just don't get struck by lightning, but like have fun playing in the thunderstorm. So this is how I grew up. So I have a very different relationship to extreme weather. So this should like preface like all of this and everybody in my family. So I'm in high school. I'm in driver's ed back when driver's ed used to be in high school. And it's towards the end of the year. It's sometime around May in Iowa, which the summer is always the thunderstorm and tornado season. So we're driving around. It had already been a really overcast day for May, which you knew there were going to be a thunderstorm. And like folks like me and like other folks who grew up in Iowa, we all say this, you can like smell a thunderstorm coming about 3 hours out. Like, it's going to be bad. And so like the air had that. And we were doing our different, everyone's switching around drivers as we're going through. And we saw the air drop. I wasn't driving. I was in the back seat. But we turned down the street, and it was a very windy day. There's all this debris and like leaves and litter and everything. And then they just fall. They just completely fall out of nowhere. And then we saw, I shit you not, 'cause it's totally untrue. Then I saw a bird, like a crow or something, that was flying that like struggled, right? Like the air pressure had dropped so much that the bird almost fell out of the sky.
Oh my
And
God.
like had to figure out how to like keep itself going. And we're all watching this from our like student driver's ed car that's going by. And our teacher was like, I think we need to go back to school. So we get back to school and it's like maybe 12:15 in the afternoon and the sky is pitch black dark and there's zero visibility. And so I was like, oh, and I'm like, I have been outside during a lot of thunderstorms and tornadoes and funnel clouds. And I'm like, I kind of know this order. And I was like, pitch black dark in the middle of the day is really bad. It's going to get really, really bad when everything turns green. But we're not quite there yet. And then if you see certain platelets in the clouds and you hear the churn, then you know that tornadoes are coming. So we get back to school. We change into like a new class period. And at that point, the sky goes completely ice blue. Like this very bright, like fervent, like glacier ice blue. I've never seen the sky be this blue, and the sky is normally blue, right? But this is like a different kind of blue. And so people just left their class, right? In the middle of class, they look outside and they see the windows and they're like, what the fuck is going on? And so as soon as we like all are in the hallway, in a second, the sky turns green. And I'm like, holy fucking shit. And our principal gets on the phone immediately, or on the loudspeaker immediately. And he's like, school is canceled, seek shelter, go home now. Like, there's not even a process. Like, just get out. So I go to school with my older brother, who's kind of a jerk. And he used to drive me to school, but would never give me a ride home from school, because then he would have to associate with me in public around all of his friends, and they'd have to know that we were related, despite the fact that we have the same last name. And, you know, I'm teenagers, and like, even to this day, me and my brother aren't close. And this is part of the reason why. So I'm scrambling around school trying to find my brother, and I'm like, you know, a tornado is coming, the sky is turning green, I can hear the churn. And my brother is like, I'm not taking you home from school. Like, I have to take my friends home to make sure they're okay.
Wow.
So I walked home in a tornado.
Oh my God.
Watched my brother drive off. About 5 minutes later, as I start walking up the hill to get to our house, is when the hail happened, which hurts. It feels like getting hit by like 25 paintballs every couple of seconds because it's ice.
Is that what the hail happened to you?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
So how far did you live from the school?
Thankfully, we didn't live that far. I think we lived about a quarter mile.
Oh, okay, good.
But it was mostly uphill. So like, and also a tornado actually did touch down in the town. It didn't touch down in our neighborhood, but I like definitely saw it. It took out other people's homes in other parts of town.
Wow.
And I make it home and my brother is like chilling on the couch, like, and I'm like drenched, soaked, bruised all over.
Oh my God.
And he's like, what happened to you? And I was like, you fucking happened to me. Like,
I don't like your brother.
I don't like him either.
I think you're allowed to not like him. Yeah.
Yeah.
He earned that. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Several years ago, actually, we got in some sort of weird spat on social media involving politics. And he was like, you never defend me. And I was like,
You're like, remember the hailstorm?
you remember the time you made me walk through a tornado to get home because you didn't want people to know we were related? Maybe that's why I don't defend you?
I don't know.
You know, they say I heard some study on NPR that said siblings are the meanest to each other of any people.
Wow.
Like siblings, by and large, say the most cruel things to one another of any
Anybody.
group. Yeah.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thankful that you're alive.
Yeah. No tornado or thunderstorm can kill me. I grew up in these things.
No hail in Puerto Vallarta either.
None. But lots of thunderstorms.
Lots of thunderstorms. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yay!
Well, this was amazing. So thank you again, Curtis and Sarah, for those fantastic stories. If you are watching this, know that we do this every month. We invite storytellers. They don't have to be authors. It can be just people who are really great at, saying bullshit. And they will come forward, possibly drinking, and tell a story on the fly. So please join us. We would love to have you join us. If you have a suggestion for any kind of future Storytellers Happy Hour, someone who you'd like to see join us, message me at lisa@runningwildpress.com. If you're interested, definitely hit us up. Go to runningwildpress.com. You can find out more all about us and what we're about. And if, once a month isn't enough, because clearly we're just fantastic, you can check us out at Run Wild with Us, Ask Andrea and Lisa Anything. It is a Facebook Live event. It is every Saturday, 2 p.m. Pacific time. So
if you have suggestions for prompts to add to our bag of prompts, also reach out. And I want to make the suggestion, I think that once we get through all the prompts, we need to have a special episode where everyone just tells a story about kissing, I think.
Okay.
Because I think those are the best stories.
All right. I'm down.
That's good.
We'll do that.
Thanks, you guys. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us. We love you.
Okay, thank you.
And we will see you soon.
Thank you.